Spanish in Uruguay is a little bit different than Spanish in other countries. They have a specific dialect that's called Castellano. The most noticeable difference with that dialect is whenever you have a double L or a Y syllable, you would pronounce that with a it's like a SH sound instead of like a Y sound like they do in Mexico. So, the word street in Spanish is spelled Calle, and in Mexico, for example, people would pronounce that calle, but in Uruguay, they would pronounce it calle. So that's the most noticeable difference between their dialect and other countries. Other than that, I would say the Spanish is pretty similar. Like, they do have some phrases and expressions and vocabulary that are different than Mexico or other, Hispanic nations. But overall, I think that learning Spanish, it can seem kind of overwhelming because, it's always hard to learn a new language, but I personally think that Spanish is one of, if not the easiest language to learn. So I feel pretty lucky in that sense. And also people, missionaries who go to Uruguay are lucky in the sense that they'll get to learn, one of, if not the most common language in the world. So it'll be easy for them to keep it up after they come back, and it's a really helpful language to know. I also would give advice to missionaries going there, specifically about the language. Well, I would say that I started to feel really comfortable speaking the language on my own after about 6 months or so. And then after that, my advice would be, once you start to feel comfortable with it, try to learn the more difficult parts of the language, like expressions and kind of the local language there that they have, rather than just learning how to say things faster. And one of the best ways you can do that is by speaking with the members there, or anybody really, anybody in the country. Just ask them, how do you say this? Like, how do you say this idea in Spanish? Like, what's a common phrase for this? Because even though there's a lot of words that you can translate directly over from English to Spanish, the phrases are not very easily translatable. You have to kind of learn those separately. And so, but I would say overall, learning the language it's definitely a lot easier than other languages. So, it's hard, obviously, in the beginning, but, I wouldn't say don't stress out about it too much, because you'll get the hang of it pretty soon. So, one of the specific differences in the Spanish in Uruguay is a specific phrase that they have, which is dale. Basically, it's, like in Spain, they say vale, just to express like approval or consent, or, okay, just like that, kind of like we say in English, like okay. In Uruguay, they say dale instead. People just say that all the time. And also, one thing they say a lot, in America, we say a lot when we're trying to gather our thoughts or don't know what to say next. That specific word in Uruguay, they say este. So they'll think and they'll say este, like that. So I don't know. That's kind of one of the examples of the language in Uruguay.